Happy New Year, everybody! Is there any other ways to celebrate the new year by going through the mistakes that we made in the past? Let's check on the gaming scene. What kind of mistakes that they made?
I mean, seriously, look at the big companies' track records in 2015. Ubisoft still does the same thing that they did last year and just could not take a break to the point where they can even step once into Arkham Asylum. EA does the same thing that Ubisoft did, but 10 times worse. Bethesda doesn't learn from their past mistake and still make games in which the users have to be the one to patch it. Konami has gone completely full anti-gamer and just freaking flipped their middle fingers on in public. Sega deletes their classic games off of mobile for some goddamn freaking reason. Bungie is nothing but a huge freaking sellout. Square Enix stabbed themselves by announcing an episodic Final Fantasy VII. Sony's exclusive titles are nothing but disappointments. My most anticipated game of the year completely freaking backfires and burns my PC into its core. Even Telltale, one of my favorite game developers of all time, is selling out right now for games that I really thought weren't that spectacular and sometimes even moronic. What happened to AAA? Freaking seriously.
Oh wow, that's a ton of mistakes to be honest, and I honestly cannot be more depressed to dive into the biggest epic failures of 2015. Welcome into appabend's top 10 worst games of 2015. These games basically declines the gaming community as a whole, and they should be the examples of what not to do in order to make this industry and this community to be better in the future. Instead of blaming the entire gaming community, let's blame games that actually devolves modern gaming industry. A little bit of warning, I didn't put some of these games necessarily for being bad or not enjoyable. I put these games on the list because they fail. Either that, or they represent the worst of the gaming industry. And unlike the best year list, in which I explain why the games I put there are incredible and you should totally buy them, I'm gonna describe specifically at which point do these games fail so that no other game companies can follow their mistakes. So without further ado, let's get into my top 10 worst games of 2015. Number 10. Battlefield Hardline. Let's ignore about the game mechanics for a second and talk about why this game personally failed to me. I have a group of friends who are FPS enthusiasts who love the Battlefield games, and they do not have a clue that this game is released. And by the time they played it, they switched back to Battlefield 4. I swear to God, nobody remembers this game, like literally. And now I have to remind everyone for at least a few seconds before it fades into the memory once again. Anyway, Battlefield Hardline is such a ridiculous idea with a campaign that is mixed with nothing but bafflingly ridiculous set pieces and then later mixed in with your typical Battlefield things that are just so out of place. It's a Battlefield game with the theme of cops that somehow involves tanks and assault rifles. It's like if this game takes place in Mexico. Yeah, because that worked out so well in the past. Number 9. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. I'm a huge fan of the Tony Hawk games, my favorite being Tug 2 and TAW. Unfortunately, THPS 5 is a massive disappointment. The failure of this game lies entirely on the gameplay. Not only the fact that the controls are just so wrong and incredibly unfamiliar for the old Tony Hawk players, but the fact that you're able to make the next-gen Tony Hawk games to have game mechanics that are inferior to the games that are in the PS1. This is failure. I don't know how else you're gonna describe it. This is just fail. How can you do that? What the hell is wrong with Tony Hawk these days? Their games got progressively worse. Number 8. Evolve. The failure of this game comes from its incredibly ridiculous lifespan. Literally 2 months after this game is released. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody. Nobody has further played this game, and nobody has even bothered to touch the multiplayer. Now, why does this happen? Well, maybe because when people are buying this game for like $60, they're expecting quality content that they get inside the disc of the freaking game. If you want to know how bad this game is, the first 3 reviews of the Steam page of this game tells me not to buy it at all. One guy has played this game for 300 hours, and he still says not to recommend this game whatsoever. Just goes to show you about that. Just, wow. Number 7. Her Story. This is a game that does not understand the concept of show, don't, tell. If you have a great story for a game that you want to tell to people, that is fine. But please, for the love of God, can you find ways to show the story? This is a game in which you are an investigator that is tasked to do nothing but browsing through the local files of someone telling a story of how they committed a murder. Note the keyword tell, because that is incredibly important in judging this entire game. In this vast world of entertainment industry, you can have several methods of storytelling. The lowest form is novel. Then we go higher to an audio play. Then we go higher again into movies. And finally, video games. If you compile the footages of Her Story into a movie, it would not have been a movie. It would be an audiobook. If you do not pass the checklist of a narrative storytelling on being a movie, what is the reason for you for being a game? Only God knows. Only God knows. Number 6. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. It's literally the same thing as Her Story, except it is 10 times more boring. The game's plot revolves discovering a mystery to which the mystery has already been resolved by looking at the title of the freaking game. I'm sorry, but spoilers. It turns out that people disappear because of alien space magic. The game successfully answered the how, but it doesn't really answer why. I don't think you're gonna bother answering that because that's gonna require some effort. Oh, and because modeling animated aliens are way too hard for you to do. And by the way, the game does have moments that actually show what's going on, but there's an even bigger problem that this game suffers that Her Story also suffered from. The player is not involved in the story. It's kind of like Gone Home, where the player does not take the major role in an infinitely more interesting story or not being the main focus of the entire thing. This is like watching a Doctor Who episode at its intro without even having the chance to see David Tennant's wonderful haircut. I don't have to be a Doctor Who fan to see how incredibly disappointing that is. Number 5. PES 2016. When I heard news that Konami is only gonna focus on pachinko machines on their game titles, my thoughts are literally nothing but, oh my god, what the frick were you thinking, you piece of maggot? But then they're gonna focus on Pro Evolution Soccer, and I was like, okay, that's a game that I like a whole lot better than FIFA, and I always play, so go on Konami. However, this year's Pro Evolution Soccer is nothing but a massive middle finger. Instead of porting the significantly superior PS4 version, they opted to port the PS3 version of the PC because Konami is populated by a bunch of evil retards that do not learn from their previous mistake that also port the PS3 version into the freaking game. Also, if you see screenshots of PES 2016 playing at Barclays Premier League, that's a lie. Because Konami has not gotten the license of the Premier League, something that they did not fix since PES 2013. Instead, the users have to be the one to create the kits themselves and patch it into the game. A company that doesn't want to patch essential things that could make the game experience a whole lot better. Where have I ever heard that one before? Except with the case of Fallout 4, it's actually a pretty freaking fun game. PES 2016 is disappointing at best and an insult at worst. Number 4. Sunset. The game starts off with a very promising summary. You're a maid named Angela Burns trapped in the middle of a military coup. In this narrative adventure game, you're gonna experience how it feels like to be a woman of color in the middle of this extremely terrifying regime. As a maid, you're gonna start off cleaning the house of a wealthy man who is significant to the whole military coup before later the war gets to you and you have to find your ways to survive and become the badass female rebel that you are. Oh wait, that will be a more interesting game. Instead, what we get is just you being a maid. That's literally it. There's no progression. It's just you cleaning the house and glancing the world through the window. If that's not boring enough, let's throw something exciting. Or, more accurately, let's throw something embarrassing. The game developers are so kind-hearted, they blame the entire gaming community for not buying their boring game. And you have absolutely no idea the amount of corruption that is happening in the backstage of this game. The failure lies on the developers entirely for making a crap game and blaming the people who are not responsible, because that is exactly what a lot of successful people do.
I gotta blame somebody, otherwise it's all my fault. Fuck that.
Starting from this point on, I guarantee that these games that I pick for the worst of 2015 are gonna piss you off. There's this wonderful thing called opinions, and you are entitled to hold it the same way I am entitled to hold mine. If you think that me putting a game that you like on the worst list offends you, you can call me an idiot. Why? Because I am. I am an idiot. I am an asshole. And so are everyone in this entire freaking world. The only difference is that I can show you how I can be right. Now show me how I am wrong. Number 3. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. To be fair, I don't hate Syndicate at all. I find Syndicate to be at best a tolerable entry to the Assassin's Creed series. However, the release of this game only marks something bigger in the backstage. Ubisoft is scraping on the bottom of the barrel and cannot take a break. If they find a treadmill, they're gonna continuously run on it until they are tired and they fall down spectacularly. Even in my review, I noted how this game is taking elements from other games, how it still treats you like a moron, and how incredibly old the overall gameplay is. The failure of Assassin's Creed is in the game, not because the game is bad, but because it highlights everything that is wrong with the company that made it. For some reason, Ubisoft is desperate for money and they're gonna do everything to make sure that the Assassin's Creed is a game franchise that everybody will buy once a year, even though the formula of the game has been exploited until nothing is left on the barrel. At this moment, they're putting Far Cry on their iron sights, but at least 2 years a game was enough for a momentary break. Ubisoft, I hate to break the bad news, but Assassin's Creed is dying. People are losing interest. If you just give this series a break for at least 3 years, you would make a great game. But instead, you keep on stepping. Give it a break. It's getting boring. I know that you're interested with money, Ubisoft, so please do this for your fans, for the peoples who are going to buy your games. Do it. I'm not going to that meme. I'm not going to that meme at all. I'm not. Number 2. Star Wars Battlefront. I don't put this game on the list because the game is extremely bad, because I have reports of people enjoying the living hell out of this game. I put this game on the list because of the price tag and the lack of content inside it that does not justify whatever the hell this game has to offer with $110. You can literally go into the nearest online gaming store and buy some other ridiculously cheap, amazingly perfect, superior in every way Star Wars games. And guess what? Up to January the 5th on Steam, they're all around $2. Those 3 games for less than $10 for the best of Star Wars with countless of hours of play, compared to the $110 of Battlefront 2015 with a lot of missing features from one of the games that costed only $2 freaking dollars. Knights of the Old Republic alone wasted like 25 plus hours. It is such a beautiful and exhilarating experience. And guess what? I'm not a Star Wars fan. Why does this game exist in a $100 10 price tag when other infinitely superior Star Wars games exist? Not only cheaper, but infinitely better. I don't know. This game literally has no reason to exist, which is why I put this game on the list. And now for my number one game. The game on my number one pick is not the kind that you expect in the worst game ever section. To be fair, this game is in some ways objectively good. However, this is the one game that I anticipated for this year, and I expect it to be the best game of the year. But it ultimately backfires and lets me down in almost every way. Number 1.
Son of a bitch! How dare you! You don't get to decide! Get away from me! Go!
This game has committed several atrocities in a combo that I honestly thought cannot be possible with an Arkham game. The game is an unplayable mess on the PC version. The frame rate and bug reports are some of the worst I have ever seen in a AAA game in a while. Even if you can forgive the PC version, the gameplay is subpar and is completely overridden with battle tanks and ridiculous riddle puzzles. The identity of the Arkham Knight villain is incredibly predictable. Batman himself is an unrelatable jerk who treats his sidekicks like ass and deserves a slap in the freaking face. And the worst part, they have the chance to fix the PC version of this game and they wasted it. They pulled the broken version off of Steam and then put it back in, only to find out that the game is still broken. What a freaking failure. I don't care if you think that this game is great or anything, but you cannot deny the multitude of failure that this game has in one of the major platforms that this game focused on. The reason why I put this game over Star Wars is that unlike Star Wars, I am a Batman fan, and the fact that their latest game butchers the name of the Caped Crusader hurts my heart into its core. This game sucks, and I recommend you to stay the frick away. That's all for this video. I hope 2016 is gonna be extremely wonderful for all of you. If you like this video, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching and Happy New Year.